How did separate themselves?
I think just their body of work, and that really was a continuation of the spring. I think when you look at X first and foremost, his story is really cool. Where a guy that's just kind of continued to work, the work has paid off. He earned the right as a punt returner, as a gunner, continued to earn confidence as a receiver, where he can play a bunch of different spots, and I think he's gotten stronger physically. He just looks like he is in a better place, and then I think mentally he has a real good understanding of what's going on. He's earned that confidence, and so I feel really good about Xavier Smith, and he certainly has earned the position that he's in. He's going to be a big-time factor for our football team. Kanate, came in as a rookie and matured beyond his years. Reminded me of some of our defensive rookies last year, where just great demeanor, great disposition, great understanding of the game from a big picture perspective. I think he's wired to be able to win from the slot or on the outside, and he's done a great job. And I think top to bottom, this is as good of a 6 as we've had.
Not just the roster.
Yeah, I think the first thing is a lot of appreciation for a lot of guys that were here. And I do look at it as we have 69 guys on our team. The 16 players on our practice squad will join us tomorrow. A lot of tough decisions, but do feel clarity in terms of the way things shaked out. Looking at what we want to be about, and not easy decisions. But you do feel really good about the 53, and I feel good about what it looks like our 16 practice squad guys will be when they come in tomorrow, and we get to work and keep stacking days. But very pleased with it. We got to continue to come together. Always health is a big part of this thing. Do feel like we're getting healthy at the right time, and hopefully we can maintain that and be able to handle the adversity when it does come our way, because it is going to come our way, and how we handle that will be a separator if we can do it the right way. He had a little ankle yesterday. He's going to be okay.
And is there like a guy that's like that came into camp, may have been, you didn't think may make the team, but he made that leap into this?
I think there's a lot of guys that you could talk about, but I think Sean Dolak's a guy that personifies really, we're going to evaluate who we think is the best players, and it doesn't matter whether you were drafted, what your salary is. We're going to try to do it. And it doesn't mean that we make all the right decisions, but we do try to be able to have honest evaluations and do what's best for the collective. And I think he's a great example. I don't know that I'd say I was shocked, because there was a lot of appreciation for him coming in as an undrafted free agent, but I think it's a good representation of everything is going to be earned, and he was a guy that earned a spot. But there's a lot of examples. I was asked about Xavier Smith earlier. You look at a guy like Alaric Jackson that has earned the right to get paid. Comes in as an undrafted free agent a handful of years ago, and now he's a premier starting left tackle in this league. So a lot of cool examples, but really love this team, love the makeup of it.
Sean, can you expand a little bit on the decision to waive through Paul? I think externally there was probably a lot of surprise seeing that. What went into that decision?
First of all, great dude. I really respect him as a man, and not an easy decision, Stu. But what we are tasked to do is be able to evaluate what we think when we went with 4 inside linebackers. What do we think are the 4 best inside linebackers? And that's not exclusive to playing inside linebacker. Part of that is playing special teams. And Sean Dolak's a guy that's going to be able to play on all 4 phases. Troy Reeder is going to play on all 4 phases. And so when you look at Landman and Omar Spates as your starting inside linebackers when you're in your 2-backer defenses, those 3rd and 4th spots are heavily dictated and determined by where do you create value, not exclusive to the inside linebacker position. And it's not anything to take away from Pooh, because I got respect, love, and wish him nothing but the best. But those 2 guys, made themselves really important, and that's why they'll have a jersey on game day.
Coach, can you just, my apologies.
Are you good?
Can you talk about your decision to keep 10 offensive linemen instead of 9, which was projected?
I think when you look at our previous history, Brock, it's hard to have 10 real NFL offensive linemen on your roster, and it's really cool for KT Leviston to get a chance to put good stuff on tape against Cleveland, and they wanted to be able to trade for him for a future pick. But we've had some issues in previous years where we've gotten injured. We have a veteran right tackle. Obviously, the situation is very unique with Alaric, while we do feel positive about that. To be able to have Warren McClendon, to be able to have David Questenberry come in and then bring in DJ Humphries, felt like that's 5, really good NFL offensive linemen that are playing the tackle position. And then to have 5 guys on the inside, when you're talking about Steve Coleman, K-Dot as your starting inside 3, and then 2 young players that as rookies accumulated a bunch of experience, and Bo Limmer playing basically the whole year at center, and then Justin Dedich coming in and playing a handful of snaps at the guard position. Felt like those guys earned it, and felt like there was a pretty good separation that those guys all deserve spots.
Is Josh Wallace corner, safety, or
He's all of the above, and that's part of what makes him valuable. Gary is he can play, corner, he can play the slot position, he can play safety. You saw him play safety in the preseason, and so he's a guy that's going to be in 3 of our 4 phases on special teams. One of those guys that just came in, mature beyond his years as a rookie last year. Came from obviously a great program, was a guy that had transferred up, and I just love what he's about, and he provides a ton of value because of how smart he is. The game makes sense to him, and he's really valuable as that 9th DB spot for us, where it's unique because Quentin Lake plays some different positions, not exclusive to safety, and so to be able to have somebody like him is really cool to be able to fill out that role.
couple more guys?
Been consistent with how we've done it. I don't know if I think 10 years, was kind of the specific line of demarcation just based on this team. I don't want to pigeonhole myself into that being kind of the continuous theme. I think it's that flexibility, but the guys that fell under that bucket, I think they're going to get their physical work, but where can we pull off them in a smart way? Because you need to be callous for the season. But these guys that have accumulated a lot of wear and tear, how do you have the mindfulness of 17 games and then hopefully you earn the right to be able to play after that? And so I think it's been good. Those guys feel good right now, which is important, and we want to be able to peak at the right time and then see if we can have continuous gains throughout the season. So I think it's been good. I feel really fortunate that when I first got here, I've gotten, I knew a little bit about the sports science approach from some of my time in Washington, but then when you're setting practice plans, you realize how fortunate you are to have a Reggie Scott, where he's educating me. They had a consistent, good track record of taking care of guys. Andrew Whitworth, when we signed him, that was really important to be able to allow him to take care of himself, and John Sullivan. So, you had some guys early on, and when we got here in 2017, that it was beneficial and it was fruitful. And then part of the benefits too is that some of those guys behind him are getting reps that they wouldn't otherwise get. It's the same thing why you guys heard me talk about you don't wish anything on guys not being available, but with Matthew not being out here, Jimmy and Stetson got reps that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise. But I think from the very beginning, I think you continuously learn about it. I've certainly made a ton of mistakes, in the 8 years and now going into year 9. But some of the things that have served us well is leaning on Reggie and his group to be able to guide us, to be able to counsel our players the right way, but also be mindful of if they're fresh and they feel good physically and mentally and emotionally, that's when we're going to get the best football players as well.
Coach, 2 more guys. The Ronnie and or Cody candidates to come back and practice.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, for sure. Yep.
Coach, Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift announced their engagement today.
Nice.
What's your reaction to that? And any advice for Travis?
I'll tell you what, that's good for them that you're asking me about that today. Happy for them. I've always been a fan of Travis. Shoot, I can remember, when we had good breakfast at IHOP, when we hosted him on a visit when I was coaching tight ends back in Washington. It was one of my favorite breakfasts of all times. I've loved watching him go do his thing. And then, big fan of Taylor Swift as well. So congratulations to the happy couple. Can't make it up, man. I love it.